Sometimes a game's title tells you everything you need to know, and Gore Doctor certainly delivers on its promise of visceral horror. Unfortunately, that's about all it manages to deliver successfully. This Xbox Series X exclusive from Salient Games feels more like a rough draft than a finished product, leaving players stumbling through the darkness both literally and figuratively. From the moment you wake up in the deranged Doctor's Institute, Gore Doctor's most glaring issues become painfully apparent. You simply can't see what you're doing. Even after finding a head torch, navigating the dimly lit corridors felt like a constant battle against the game's oppressive darkness. I found myself adjusting the TV brightness, only to discover that the problem wasn't my display but the game itself. This wouldn't really be a critical flaw if Gore Doctor was an atmospheric horror masterpiece, but when you're constantly squinting to find the next door or puzzle element, immersion quickly gives way to frustration. The core gameplay revolves around wandering through interconnected locations, from schools to cinemas to the main hospital, searching for keys and solving basic puzzles. During my 3-hour plus playthrough, I was struck by how repetitive these tasks became. Most puzzles involved little more than collecting specimen jars or inputting codes found scattered around the environment. There was a couple of good moments of creativity, like mimicking a musical toy on the piano, but these bright spots are few and far between. The game seems more interested in showing you grotesque imagery than challenging your problem-solving skills. When Gore Doctor does attempt combat, the results are frankly embarrassing. The two available weapons, a melee weapon and a gun weapon, feel like they're made of cardboard. There's no satisfying feedback when shooting enemies, and the handful of masked adversaries that you encounter don't seem to react when hit. There was a sinister dinner lady who was pretty exciting, but these moments just show how unfinished the game felt. The enemies seem so dim-witted that I completed the game without having taken much damage. Visually, Gore Doctor is a mixed bag at best. Whilst the gore effects are suitably gruesome, the overall presentation suffers from bizarre lighting artifacts and waxy textures that reflect light inappropriately. The first-person jumping feels clunky and imprecise, making the platforming sections more tedious than they should be. There's also an utterly pointless 5-minute elevator sequence that serves no purpose other than padding out the overall story. Whilst I appreciate this is an independent production with limited resources, the price point did set expectations that the game simply didn't deliver. However, Gore Doctor's biggest problem is that it's entirely one-dimensional. Strip away the shock value and grotesque imagery, and you're left with a bare-bones horror experience that doesn't understand what makes the genre compelling. The story, supposedly about a doctor driven mad by his wife's death, is paper-thin and told through scattered notes that fail to create any emotional connection. It feels like a poor imitation of the Saw films without understanding what made these movies work beyond the gore. So overall, Gore Doctor is not necessarily a terrible game, it just feels more like an unfinished one. Whilst I can appreciate the developer's ambition to create something disturbing and visceral, the execution falls well short of the mark. Technical issues, shallow gameplay, and poor value for money makes this a difficult recommendation. Horror fans seeking genuine scares might be better looking elsewhere. However, if you are time poor and just want a couple of hours, then Gore Doctor might satisfy a very specific audience craving mindless gore. But for everyone else, this prescription should probably be left unfilled. So if this has been useful, then please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back with another review very soon.
Finish him!